Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about Revive Gate 2.0. Right, effectively people have been asking to me as well recently since the release of Necropolis whether the Revive drop rates have been nerfed. And I have always avoided to comment on it because it's such a subjective experience. You can just go on a bad luck streak where you reset them up 4 times and nothing happens. And some people said, they are struggling to revive farm, and just as many said that I'm doing perfectly fine, farmed 40 revives in the last few days, and I'm like, okay, fair. So it's always such a subjective thing where I don't really, it feels like it got nerfed. So I wasn't going to make a video on that. However, now we actually have a foreboding warning from Kabam Jax that, well, you know how revive farming was already nerfed from 326 and from 536? Well, they are going further. Since we discussed silent nerfs and data collection on this subject here, I feel this might be a good time to put this out into the Bal realm. These earlier act revive farms will be nerfed. As we have discussed in the past, this has to happen. It is inevitable. This is not the result of people posting in the forums. This is the result of looking at the data and impact these type of things have on the contest as a whole. That being said, the timeline for this looks like it should land in early January and likely before the final cutoff of the Road to the Crypt Necropolis event. So I anticipate most of you will have free time in December. I'm not going to tell you how to use it, but you are now equipped to make informed decisions. Which is, first of all, a worthwhile price here. Didn't seem like they had to give us as much of a notice, or they initially intended to give us as much of a notice, but now they have. So, Summoner, be warned, if you want to do Necropolis, go and farm. Farm now until the beginning of January, as much as you can. That's number one. Number two. We obviously need to talk about the Revive nerf in itself. And here we stand. Potion economy fix has been abysmal disaster thus far. And that took like 7 months to come up with cheaper prices for potions, which is like horrible. And now they are taking this away as well. And again, I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily that much against the Revive nerf in itself. I don't think it's something that's going to get cool or amazing or necessary in the game if the game is built properly. I do, however, think that, even in situations like this where Necropolis is just released, and yet Necropolis is nowhere near as hard as Abyss was upon launch. At the same time, though, it still features, those stupid dynamo mechanics. Where, oh, you have spent a minute in this fight. Guess we're going to make it really, really difficult for you now. Oh, you have been here for a minute and a half. Well, it's time for you to die. And things like that is, part of what makes these revive farms necessary to begin with. And then, pretty much everything else Kamal has said on the subject, how it trivializes endgame content, and so on and so forth. Bullshit. They don't mind us trivializing endgame content. Aegon trivialized Necropolis. Made it as trivial as possible. Aegon plus revives. Hercules plus revives trivialize the rest of the content. And guess what? Nerfing a revive farm doesn't untrivialize it. It just makes it cost units instead. Units which you can farm effectively slower than the revives. And so we are here yet again for this discussion. And obviously, there is Kabam White Knighting, there is legitimate arguments for it, against it. The rest of the forum shenanigans. Forum's such a nasty, nasty place. Stop trivializing content. And let me know what you guys think about it. Because from my perspective, this is the way I look at it. Number one, again, keep in mind, everything that I say on this matter is not largely because of personal interest. really don't have that much taken here. I already explored Necropolis. It's probably going to be a couple of years until they release something, similar to that. In those years, I will likely accumulate stash similar to what I had before Necropolis. And just FYI, I barely farmed for Necropolis. I only farmed like 50 revives, and it turns out I didn't even need them because I had over 100 left over to rush through it. So I'm really not speaking about this from like some sort of personal investment. It's like, oh no, Kabam's gonna nerf the revives, how am I gonna play the game? At the same time, I think this, again, releasing the content and having existing content in the game and then nerfing these revives worked out worst for progressing players. Everybody who is in top form to do Necropolis right now and can benefit from this obviously has major advantage compared to any of the up and coming players who will be going into Necropolis like half a year from now or 4 months from now when the revive farm doesn't exist, because they'll have no real options then. And that is, one of the bigger problems with these things, because Kabam has already designed a ton of content in these Korean challenges and Abyss and Necropolis and whatnot, based on the fact that these revives are farmable and are available, and then they are taking it away. So whoever's going to be doing it afterwards is kind of screwed. That's one thing. Second thing is, again, I don't think that, revive farming in itself, like in a vacuum, is necessarily a good thing. Let's face it, it's tedious. It doesn't, make for fun activity or anything of the sort. It's a means to an end. But that end is created by Kabam, obviously. And part of this, putting aside the fact that we already have huge, portions of game who demand these revives to be used, we also need to talk about faith in Kabam, whether they will be capable of creating content that feels fair, balanced with the revives that we can earn. And the answer there is still undoubtedly quite a big no. Whilst ultimately I do believe that Necropolis at large has had like a great content launch, and I think they did a great job on Necropolis, but that definitely is an outlier in terms of what they are presenting and what they are building and how they're going about it. And, a great kind of like example of how Kabam views player base or what is acceptable for us is Apothecary. Apothecary is hot garbage. It costs a ton of it costs a ton of energy. You can't auto complete it. Gives you 120% revive a day. It's like nothing. I think ever since Apothecary came out, I hadn't even touched it until the Necropolis was announced, and then I ran it like 4 days or so. And I just couldn't be asked afterwards, and I haven't been running it since, really. Because it's just so bad. Like, it really doesn't feel like worth the time and effort. But that is what Kabam came up with as quote-unquote a compensation for this revive nerf, which they already did, but now they're deciding that it's not enough, and they're going further and further with it. So, when they did it the first time, I think the tensions were higher. At this point, I'm looking at it, again, a bit more distant, a bit more pragmatic. And again, I don't think the revive nerf in itself is an issue. It's the fact that the rest of the game is kind of tuned with these revive amounts in mind to begin with. And the issue is whether we as a community have faith that Kabam will release, fair and balanced content that doesn't necessarily require you to spam revives a lot. And I don't have that faith in them, especially with content like Necropolis. Given the fact that they still have damage caps in it, given the fact that, there's still these enrage timers and dynamo mechanics. And, the entire Necropolis was also virtually littered with extremely hard to avoid bursts of damage throughout the content, be that in, Shang-Chi fights or be that Tuma itself and so on and so forth. A lot of it wasn't even, playing it to your best of ability. A lot of it was trying to avoid that some random damage or random acid wash to the face or something. And stuff like that will always require revives. And just like with potions, and the potion situation and this potion revamp has been abysmally awful. Honestly, they completely missed the entire point with the potion economy. It wasn't how much an individual potion costs. It was always about how we get the potions and how many of them we can get, which they didn't touch at all. I feel concerned genuinely for this. Again, it's obvious why they're doing it. Everything else that they're saying why it's bullshit. You know, you can simply distill this entire thing. They are doing this because fucking money. They want more money from the player base. They want you to use units. They want you to buy those units. Ultimately, that's what it is. They can bullshit 7 days a week and twice on a Sunday about any other reasons. That's what it boils down to. They want more money from the player base. And that's why they're doing it. And again, it's like, will it end up being worth it? Because decisions like this is what drives player base away. Decisions like this is what makes active players become casual players. Decisions like this is what makes active spenders become casual spenders or free-to-play players. And they also need to understand that. And therefore, you know, from my point of view, when I read these type of news, again, I'm not particularly worried about myself. Again, I have pretty much never or hardly ever really revive farmed. Again, I did farm some 50 revives, but it turned out that was completely unnecessary. And other than that, you know, I hadn't been farming revives for like ever. I have farmed energy refills now and then, but you know, that's a different issue. And I know I'll manage somehow. Because it's not like I have a ton of content to do and stuff like that. But a lot of people will struggle much more. A lot of people, again, will take a step back. And ultimately, that's not good for the game. And I want the player base to grow. I want the player base to be more engaged. I want the player base to be happy. And unlike Kabam, I don't, you know, put their profits, you know, in my moral and kind of like foreground of importance. Well, let me know what you guys think about this situation. It is not super easy subject. Some people will be cool with it. Some people won't be cool with it. But at large, I don't think, you know, it's gonna end up in a good way for communities. I'll catch you guys soon. Bye bye.
Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about